Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Yes, it is the weekend. This is a weekly recap of all the top stories, all located in one convenient location. I hope you enjoy it. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time on Crime Talk. Next, business trips and conventions are like sleepovers. You go on them to do what you can't do at home. Well, this is Mr. Nathan Millard. He's now dead. He was found wrapped in plastic and carpet off of a Baton Rouge highway after he reportedly collapsed from an accidental overdose on March 6th. Why? Well, he reportedly was partaking in prostitutes and drugs on his business trip. Now, that's what I'm saying. He was on a business trip, and according to the arrest affidavit of the now defendants, he came upon two prostitutes while looking for something to make him feel better, including possibly a girl to take back to his room. Well, the two prostitutes are Tiffany Guidry and Tabitha Barner. Needless to say, the wife of the father of five was rather shocked by his death, and I understand. My condolences. And it also appears that Mr. Miller's wife says she didn't receive her usual morning text from him when he goes on the road, which made her somewhat suspicious. Well, originally, a guy by the name of Derek Perkins was initially arrested on March 14th in connection to Mr. Millard's death on charges of damage to property, 3 counts of access device fraud, and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. He was accused of using the deceased's debit card and was allegedly seen driving a stolen 2004 Toyota Camry near the crime scene. Now, Mr. Perkins, who is also an alleged drug dealer, later told police that Millard was involved with 4 prostitutes the night that he actually disappeared. Now, the dealer said that he had picked up Mr. Millard and 2 prostitutes, referring to C and LM, and drove them around a while they all got high. According to the arrest report, Mr. Millard was introduced to one of the prostitutes, who was black, by a homeless man referred only as JW. Shortly after, he was taken to the Greyhound bus station to withdraw money. While at the bus station, Mr. Miller denied an employee's offer for help and left with JW to find a prostitute to make him feel better. Well, the two introduced Miller to Perkins and drove around in the dealer's Toyota while they got high. Mr. Miller later went to a Circle K with the prostitutes around 4 a.m. to withdraw some more money. He then ditched the prostitutes inside and told Mr. Perkins he wanted a white girl instead, according to the police affidavits. There's surveillance footage from Circle K, which shows Mr. Miller basically being alive for the last time. According to the affidavit, Mr. Miller was headed to a home on Laurie Burgess Avenue, where Mr. Perkins claimed he waited outside when the others were using syringes. Apparently, they were all up there doing that stuff, but he doesn't do any of that stuff, Mr. Perkins said. And Mr. Perkins was sent to a local store to use Millard's credit card to buy some undisclosed items. When he arrived back, he waited outside while all 3 of them were apparently having sex inside, the prostitutes and Mr. Millard. Shortly after, Mr. Barner told the dealer that Millard had died while they were in the home, and Barner rushed to grab a drug to reverse an overdose known as Narcan. But despite the drug and CPR, they all failed to revive him, and guess what? Now the father of 5 is dead. Rather than calling the police, the 3 allegedly then took matters into their own hands, wrapped Mr. Millard up in a carpet he collapsed on, and tossed him into the Toyota. His body was disposed of near the 2900 block of Scenic Highway and found days later by an unknown man who smelled something funny as he was walking by. Meanwhile, Perkins had allegedly spray painted the car's bumper, removed stickers, and swapped license plates while the news about the father's death came to light. Police have accused him of trying to disguise the car, obviously. He then sold the car and later burned it. Barner told police that she never met Millard. She claims Perkins picked her up on February 23rd in a panic for Narcan, according to her statement to the police. Now, Ms. Barner told investigators on March 14th that she had attempted to hop into the Toyota, but there was no room due to scattered clothing in the back seat and a white female in the front seat. Millard's phone was found not far from his hotel after preliminary discoveries uncovered footage of him walking around town. Footage released earlier this month showed Mr. Millard walking along Florida Boulevard in Louisiana after he left Happy Irish Bub when an employee cut him off for being too drunk. From there, Mr. Millard went to the bus station and then was reportedly seen roaming the area on multiple surveillance cameras, including with an unidentified man. Millard's toxicology results have not been released. We'll see what was in his system, perhaps. So I've said this before, and I get a lot of guff from it. Like I said, business trips, conventions are like sleepovers for kids. People go to do what they can't do on their own. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there's lots of good people that go out there on legitimate business trips, but a lot of people go and do, well, kind of what Mr. Millard did. Go out drinking, have a few drinks. Next thing you know, you got a couple of prostitutes with you and things are going very, very poorly. Best advice, just don't put yourself in those types of situations. Just saying. Next on the docket, Lori Vallow. Let's get ready to rumble. That's right, the trial is scheduled to begin next week, ladies and gentlemen. On the defense team, we have Jim Archibald, who's been a public defender for over 30 years and has been assigned to at least 27 homicide cases and at least 5 death penalty cases. Also accompanying him in the tag team match is John Thomas. He's been a defense attorney since 2005, and he previously worked as a prosecutor in Bingham County. Although they came to the game late, they are winning. Now, John Thomas, does he not remind you of John Candy or Chris Farley every time you see him? I think he does, but he's doing a bang-up job. Over here in this corner, we have the government. The prosecutors, Rob Wood from Madison County, been the prosecuting attorney since 2020 after serving 5 years in the office as a young deputy. Lindsay Blake is the Fremont County prosecuting attorney, also elected in 2020, and then the hired gun for the prosecution, Rachel Smith, from Missouri with over 25 years of experience in homicide and death penalty cases. Bringing up the rear is Spencer Remmel and Tanya Rawlings are also prosecutors on the team. So far, all of them have years of experience, but they already look dazed and confused before the bout has even begun. They've missed deadlines, and they've been more concerned with money issues than achieving justice. We will see if they can get their act together and rally against the heavy burden of proof that is required of beyond a reasonable doubt. And the judge or the referee for this bout is District Court Judge Stephen Boyce. After 20 years of private practice, he was appointed to the bench in 2019. He definitely started off favoring the prosecution, but he seems to have been getting his sea legs after repeated blunders by the prosecution, and he may also be trying to minimize the prejudice of setting Lori Vallow's trial outside of her speedy trial by dismissing the death penalty. And let's not forget the main contender, although we doubt we'll hear from them throughout the match, Lori Vallow, charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and grand theft. The brawl will be over whether the government can prove Lori Vallow's involvement in the allegations of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception for the death of Tylee Ryan, first-degree murder of the death of Tylee Ryan, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception for the death of J.J. Vallow, first-degree murder for the death of J.J. Vallow, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in the death of Tammy Day Bell, that's right, husband number 5's previous wife, and grand theft. Was there a conspiracy, an agreement between 2 or more people to commit an illegal act? Did the evil dead guy, her brother Alex Koch, do it without Lori's knowledge? We're going to have to wait and see if $3.6 million gets you justice or just a bunch of bad press for small-town prosecutors. The questions will all be answered April 24th. Remember, get your tickets now. Let's get ready to rumble.
There was a hearing, and it was about who gets to sit in the courtroom when witnesses are testifying, okay? the court issued a sequestration order, and that basically says that witnesses are not allowed to sit in the courtroom and watch other people's testimony. That's pretty routine in most cases. The only place I didn't see that followed was basically in the Alec Murdaugh trial, where everybody got to sit in on the testimony. Very unusual. Well, there's also an exception to that rule. The sequestration rule, usually under the Victims' Rights Act, says that the victim or the relatives, like mother and father normally, get to sit and observe the proceedings in their entirety, even if they're endorsed as a witness may be called. Now, the defense has filed a motion saying, yeah, we're not going to let everybody into the courtroom because they don't even fit the definition of a victim, which is normally immediate family. Now, I can say I've litigated this motion in the past. Normally, when I've had a child victim that was going to testify, the prosecution allowed mother or father to sit into the courtroom, and we objected, and we said we have them under subpoena. They should not be allowed to appear. Usually doesn't work, but why does the defense do it? Usually because you believe that the presence of the parent or relative in the courtroom is going to make some sort of impact, and not usually a good impact for the defense. So I see why the defense is doing that, and frankly, I don't think there's a whole lot of love lost between the Woodcocks and Lori Vallow for obvious reasons. So, like I said, the court held a hearing today, and they're arguing over the definition of who is basically allowed to stay in the courtroom. Judge Boyce's order states that he would exclude witnesses from sitting in on certain testimony, but victims in the case could be exceptions. The question is, who's legally considered a victim under the Victims' Rights Act? Well, Robert Wood argued on behalf of the prosecution and basically said that the interpretation of victims should include anyone who suffers emotional harm as a result of the offense. He specifically pointed to JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, who believes fits the definition of who should be allowed to watch the testimony of the trial in its entirety. Now, Lori's defense team responded saying that they believe that Colby Ryan is the only relative who fits the legal definition of a victim since he is a sibling of the deceased victim. The defense also argued that aunts and grandparents should not be considered victims under the statute. Archibald also argued that the children of Tammy Daybell would fit the legal definition of victims in this case, but said that he doesn't believe that they plan to be present at the trial. Archibald then argued that because of the Idaho adoption laws, and he argued that since JJ's biological parents gave up their legal rights, that means Kay Woodcock is no longer legally JJ's grandmother. Now, Archibald argued that Kay Woodcock gave herself the name of grandma. He argued since she is Charles Vallow's sister, she is actually JJ's aunt, and therefore not an immediate family member that would meet the legal definition of a victim of the crime under the Victims' Rights Act there in Idaho. Judge Boyce is going to take this under advisement, and the prosecution and defense have till 5 o'clock today to submit further briefings. Hopefully, the prosecution can get that done on time. So, a couple of things. Like I said, kind of a tactical move. The defense probably doesn't like the presence of the Woodcocks in the courtroom simply for the fact that they've been such strong advocates throughout this process, and I'm sure Lori Vallow doesn't want them there. What else is the defense doing? If the defense is raising motions like this and the prosecution is having to respond to motions, guess what? They're not preparing for their case. Tactical decision, yes. Probably leaves you a little dirty at night. Probably need to get that wire brush out to take a shower, I'm sure. But they're doing what they think they have to do to represent their client. They must think that it's going to be some tactical advantage. Clearly, this is designed for the Woodcocks, and I hope the prosecution and the judge get this right. This case may not even exist if it weren't for the Woodcocks that had this ongoing concern about where in the heck were JJ and Ty Lee. So hopefully the judge does the right thing, even if the court rules against the Woodcocks as being a victim under the Idaho Bill of Rights. Hopefully the prosecution will do everything that they can to accommodate them. And Even so, I think Kay and Larry's testimony, if called to testify, would be early on in the case, and then they should be able to watch the remainder of the case in the courtroom.
Is the Bryan Kohberger trial in jeopardy? Now, I saw this notice filed the other day, and we really didn't talk about it because I didn't think it was a big deal. But everybody out there is saying, oh my gosh, the trial's in jeopardy. Bryan Kohberger's going to be released. No, he's not. So what's at issue? Listen, the prosecutors have filed a notice to the courts and to the defense that an officer involved in the Bryan Kohberger case is the subject of an internal investigation taking place. Now, this is a notice that the prosecutor should turn over. They should do that. The prosecutor's doing what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to turn over anything that's covered by Brady v. Maryland or US v. Giglio. And that's simple. And so the Latah County District Attorney filed this notice and said, we'll turn this over, but we want a protection order so that only the defense can have this and they cannot turn this over to anybody else, specifically the court. Now remember, Brady material is information that could potentially be exculpatory. Anything that reduces the guilt of a defendant. The prosecution has a duty to turn that over. Additionally, under Giglio, it's a case, United States Supreme Court case, basically says that if there's material that could impeach the credibility of one of the prosecution's witnesses, which obviously an officer listed as a potential witness, then the prosecutor has to turn that over. Okay, so the judge, the magistrate judge who's handling this matter said, yes, we're going to have a protective order, prosecution, turn this over, and guess what? It's protected because it's personnel files, which normally would not even be subject to a disclosure. It's privacy issues. So remember, the preliminary hearing is not set on this case until the 26th of June, and the prosecutors haven't revealed whether they're going to have the death penalty in this particular case, which is not a big deal. It's not there yet. It's not at that stage just yet where those decisions have to be made. And remember, Bryan Kohberger is the only person charged for the murder of the 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Zaina Kernodle. All right, and we'll give him the presumption of innocence, which he's entitled to. But do not panic. This is routine stuff. Oftentimes, every time a witness list is given to the defense by the prosecution, if a police officer has ever had something negative in their personnel file, it gets a little asterisk, and then the defense has to go get it. Here, the prosecutor is saying, here it is. Now, there's no information to suggest or to believe that this is the lead detective and that somehow he's involved in something. Like I said, it comes from the personnel file. It could be a street cop who literally guarded the scene that had no real involvement in the case whatsoever. For all we know, it could be a DUI or a domestic violence issue. Maybe somebody from the public made a complaint during a traffic stop that the officer was rude, and if he was reprimanded, it would go into his personnel file. Now, obviously, if he lied about it, that's something that can be used. And if this officer had an issue with his truthfulness or his honesty, that would have to be turned over. Did he lie? Then, like I said, it's ripe for cross-examination. Well, maybe, if it's truly relevant. But it goes to his credibility and honesty, then there you go. So, for all the people out there saying the case is in jeopardy, relax. It's not. Unless it was the lead detective and somehow he's accused of planting evidence against Bryan Kohberger, there's nothing to suggest it is. Let's be clear. This is nothing. Do not worry about it. Okay? Just relax.
As a pet owner, you want to give your furry friend the very best. That's why Baked in Colorado's CBD-infused dog treats are the perfect choice. These delicious treats not only taste great, but they also provide a wide range of health benefits for your pet. CBD has been shown to have many positive effects on dogs, including reducing anxiety, alleviating pain and inflammation, and improving overall wellness. Baked in Colorado's treats are infused with premium full-spectrum CBD oil, meaning your pet will benefit from the whole plant extract. Not only that, but Baked in Colorado's treats are made with all-natural human-grade ingredients, so you can feel good about what you're giving your pet. They're also free from wheat, corn, and soy, making them a great option for dogs with food sensitivities. Baked in Colorado CBD-infused dog treats are the perfect way to support your pet's health and well-being. With various flavors, including peanut butter, pumpkin, and bacon, your dog will love them too. So why wait? Head to www.bakedincolorado.com today and order your dog a bag of these delicious and nutritious treats. Your pet will thank you for it.
Next on the docket, will there be a perp walk for the former president, President Trump? So if you have not heard, former President Trump and now presidential contender for 2024 has reportedly been indicted. The indictment has not been unsealed, but that is supposed to take place next week. Now, this has to do with the alleged payments made to former porn star Stormy Daniels, who was represented by Michael Avenatti, who is currently serving time in federal prison. The other key witness is Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, and he too has served time and is a felon for his tax issues. Then we also have Alan Weisselberg, the former chief financial officer for the Trump Organization, currently incarcerated at Rikers Island, and he recently switched lawyers amid ongoing investigations into the former president's business. As you may recall, the attorneys were being paid for by the Trump Organization. Now, the reason for the switch is in dispute. Apparently, some people familiar with their relationship said that the Trump Organization would no longer foot the bill for Weisselberg's attorney, who clashed with company officials over the legal advice he provided to the ex-CFO concerning his level of cooperation with prosecutors investigating the former president. But a Trump attorney said it was simply a personal decision that Weisselberg made with his family and others, and that the company had no role in the change. I've been in this kind of situation. It's usually because somebody that's paying the bill doesn't like the legal advice that you are giving to their client. Remember, the attorney's duty, regardless of who is paying the bill, is to the client. So the question here, has Mr. Weisselberger flipped? There are reportedly many allegations in the indictment alleging fraud related to the business. Could that be part of it? So is this a case of no one is above the law, or the elected state district attorney, not the attorney general, who ran on, quote, getting Trump? Is it a witch hunt? To be determined. President Trump's indictment marks a historic first. As of Friday afternoon, when we're doing this video, the precise nature and obviously the number of charges remain unknown. But the fact that a felony indictment against a former president brings down a barrier that has stood since nearly the country's inception. For nearly 250 years, no president has ever faced criminal liability for their actions. He'll be the first president arrested since Ulysses S. Grant was pulled over for speeding in his horse and buggy at the corner of 13th and M Street in Washington, D.C. in 1872. He was let go with a fine. So, as I said, during the 2021 campaign, Bragg positioned himself as a liberal district attorney, and he has argued that by charging fewer crimes and reducing jail population, the government can promote alternatives to incarceration, and that safety in the cities will follow. How's that working out in New York? Anyway, Mr. Bragg campaigned to lower gun violence, protect survivors of domestic abuse, and not prosecute some low-level misdemeanors, such as marijuana use and jumping turnstiles. However, he did face some backlash when he tried to make it a misdemeanor to rob a business with a gun. Yeah, he withdrew that proposal. Bragg has also said that he wants to change the culture of the district attorney's office, and as a former civil rights attorney who represented Eric Garner's mother as she sought accountability for her son's death at the hands of police in 2014, Mr. Bragg said he believes law enforcement officials must be held to higher standards. On taking office, he created a police accountability unit to investigate officers who engage in criminal conduct in their policing, and a post-conviction justice unit to reinvestigate closed cases in which there are credible claims of actual innocence or an unjust conviction. So whether you hate the former president or think he is the greatest, well, we will bring you the facts with the law, and frankly, let the chips lie where they may. If it is a weak case, we'll tell you. If we think the former president has a problem, we'll tell you as well. Only time will tell if it is a political witch hunt or a righteous prosecution. I know we don't have the facts, we don't have the indictment, but let me know what you think in the comments. It could be the trial of the century. A former president and a porn star. You know it's got to be good.